This meeting is being... כן, באתי להגיד את זה, גיא, שאנחנו הולכים בכל זאת להקליט את השיחה, כדי שיהיה למי גם למי שפה וגם למי שלא פה להמשך. היי ליאור. ואתם כולכם תהיו על השקעה.
סליחה, אני על מיוט.
אנחנו ניתן לטרנס לדבר. אתם מוזמנים לשאול שאלות בצ'אט תוך כדי, מה שנוכל להתייחס בזמן, ככה אנחנו נעביר לו את השאלות תוך כדי, ומה שלא, אז תשמרו שאלות לסוף, ככה כדי שיהיה לנו מסודר ושיוכל לדבר בחופשיות.
יאללה, מהמם.
יאללה. היי טרנס.
Hey, how's it going?
Sorry for the Hebrew.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Okay, so Terence is a realtor from Memphis, and you can start.
Yes. So, of course, I am a realtor from Memphis, but I'm also an investor, a husband, a father, community activist to some degree as well. And so basically what I want to try to share with you, as much Memphis information, of course, everybody want to know what zip codes, what area to buy in. We're going to get to that a little later in the presentation. But off the top, I want to kind of go over a presentation. So is it okay to share my screen at this time?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. So can everybody see the screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, so yeah, so here's kind of like a brief bio, right? So of course I'm an active investor as well, as in addition to being a real estate professional. I've been doing this in excess of 10 years, hundreds and hundreds of transactions, 32 different states of clients, 17 different countries. The average return on investment is over 10% for most of our consistent clients, and of course our clients vary from high-end clients to somebody that's just getting started. So whether they're new into the industry in terms of getting started out investing, kind of like a lot of people in the group, or somebody that's seasoned in the group as well, we can kind of cover the gamut of that. So of course, you all are the Memphis area type investors that you're looking for the Memphis area. So just some brief bio of Memphis. So Memphis population is growing right now. The metropolitan area has roughly about 1.3 million people. And of course, that's continued to rise as well. So here is the most recent chart in population growth as it existed from the 2020 census. So here's how the population is trending for the Memphis area. Yeah. And here are the top industries as well. So Memphis is a blue collar city. So it has a high degree of rental participants in the marketplace too. So it's a great rental market given that the central location in the United States, because of the proximity to the West Coast, East Coast, down to Miami, where essentially located at, the goods can be shipped in and out, whether that be by truck, of course, by plane at a relatively quick pace. That's one of the primary reasons that FedEx is one of the top employers here in terms of distribution across the country and outside of the states as well. So Memphis not only has executives, but they also have a lot of people that actually works at the hub, work at the warehouse. And a lot of these people, some of them live around the FedEx, the airport area, but a lot of people live in different areas of the city and still commute, whether that be public transportation, whether it be, actually driving to work. They do tend to still be able to get to work. And of course, Amazon has placed a new hub here as well. And they're also building one now in Mississippi also too. I'm not really sure if you all are kind of aware of that. And of course, the research hospitals, St. Jude, I'm pretty sure St. Jude is world renowned. So a lot of people heard about St. Jude. So St. Jude is, the top cancer center in America, maybe even in the world in terms of dealing with childhood cancer. So because of that, you do have a lot of people, unfortunately, do have to relocate here now. St. Jude does provide hospitality in terms of being able to have the primary family somewhere to stay, but a lot of times too, sometimes the family would just relocate here, get a rental, just in case something comes back up down the road. Of course, we hope that, the children that go into the hospital come out and not necessarily be cancer-free, but we know that's not always the case. Yeah. And so again, FedEx is still one of the biggest, the premier cargo distributor in the country. And we also have a lot of colleges too. Now, this is the area where you want to focus on from a rental perspective, is that how can you get around some of the colleges to be able to get that rental income? Because a lot of times when you're around the colleges, you're able to have the parents paying the rent, the parents that own the lease, and the parents are going to be ultimately responsible for the children, parting in the property or, destroying the property, but they'll be on the hook for it as opposed to the actual students themselves. So if you're able to get around any of these colleges, is also ideal as well, because it just makes it easier to get the properties rented, and typically at a higher rate than you would if you were further away from the colleges. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So here's where the rubber meets the road at. So right now the property values are up roughly about, the average price right now is about $220,000 for the average sale price for a home at this particular moment. Those prices, the market is cooling some. Of course, we have high interest rates here. And we can talk about that, guys, some as well. We kind of talk about interest rates, how the market is trending. So we can take a minute to talk about it right here. I think this is a great slide for people to take a look at while we have that conversation. What do you all think?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So basically what we have is that I think interest rates, I'm not really sure. Do y'all have interest rates? Like interest rates affect prices there in Israel? Okay, of course. So it's an international thing. So right now on the luxury side, right now I just listed the luxury property in Collierville, which is the top tier area of all properties in the metropolitan area. We just put this property on the market last week, and we haven't had as many showings, as many offers as we typically have. I got one coming up tomorrow in Oakland, Tennessee, and we'll talk about the different areas a little later in the presentation, and we're going to go to the market with that. Now, the one in Collierville, we put it on the market it's like just over $650,000. It's not an investment type property, but my point is that when interest rate rise, of course, the buying power of the general public diminishes. Now, on the investment side, the average sale price is up about 17% year over year, and the average rent is up about 17% as well year over year. So on average, the prices of properties are rising as well as the actual rental amounts as well. The challenge I found with most investors that have already purchased properties in Memphis or around the country is that if you purchase a property over 2 years ago, and you look at the current marketplace right now, you feel the market is overpriced. Now, the market is priced higher, but overpriced is relative. And what I mean by that is that, for example, if you have $200,000 that you wanted to invest, now you can leave that money in the bank, or you can put it into a CD, you can put it in a stock, and it may or may not do something over the course of time, or you can put it into real estate. Now, you may say, well, listen, Terrence, I just bought a house last year for $100,000, and it's generating me $900, $1,000 a month in rent. And this year you can't find the same type of product. You may have to pay $120,000, $130,000 to get the same $1,000 in rent. Now the appreciation is an option on the table for an investor, but most investors the investors that buy and hold, they buy and hold for cash flow. So I'm working with clients, around the country that's looking to buy, fix, and flip. That's a different type of product. And so because the inventory is so constrained, that it's challenging to be able to find those properties that have enough upside value to be able to buy it, fix it, and turn around and flip it. It's not that those properties don't exist into the marketplace, but if you look down here in this section right here, you see how the inventory is low. So the lower the inventory go, the more how the prices are going to be, and the less options that you have as an investor. And so because Memphis is a top tier investor oriented market, you have investors around the country and outside of the states looking to penetrate into the market. The challenge that we have on a local level is being able to find the ideal inventory to be able to present to these clients in a way that is going to have enough upside. The biggest challenge I see is for the buy, fix, and flip. Those are more challenging because it has to have so much more upside in it. So for example, you need at least typically about 70% of value, so you can add some, so it'd be a value add. You add some money into the property, get it fixed up, and then you turn around and sell it for a premium. The problem is that a lot of these properties are selling at about 85 to 90% to value. So the room for upside potential is extremely small compared to the market in general. And so, Guy, you all can kind of speak to based on some of your recent experience in terms of kind of looking at some stuff.
Yes, so you said that fix and flip is a bit harder now, but what about rental properties? Do you feel that 1% rule, or I know that even we got to 1.5% rule originally, is it still applying now? Is it
not so much? Not as much. I think if you look at it from a like 30,000 foot view. So for example, you don't on the front end from the spreadsheet, it's difficult to find a house for $100,000 that you're going to be able to rent out for $1,000. Typically the ideal property that you're buying for $100,000 today, if it's moving like a turnkey $100,000 property, that property is probably going to bring you anywhere between $800, maybe $900 now, because rental rates are rising as fast as home prices. That $800 to $900 within 12 to 18 months could easily be closer to the $1,000. Does that make sense? So you may not get it on the front end immediately, but within a 24-month period, you should be up to the 1% rule. Now, I don't speak in absolute. So some of it, of course, it's always a deal to be found. It's just a matter of being able to find it. But in terms of turning it into an actual marketing strategy, an actual business, and being able to say, listen, I'm only buying with the 1% rule, I think you'll have fewer and fewer properties available to be able to do that with.
Okay, but as far as we see, and you said that it's going to happen as well, the rent prices are going up, and a property that originally we saw that can rent for $900 now can rent for $1,000, even a bit more. And this is on from February that we looked. So in this last 4 months, we saw really the prices of rent really rising rapidly. So correct. Is this something that you see as well?
Yeah. So the rental rates are rising extremely fast too. A lot of people are really being priced out of the rental market too. So they're going in kind of, families are teaming up together to kind of basically rent houses collectively together. So it's one of those challenges that you have. So I think typically on paper that, because home prices are still rising too. So you got both of these things rising at the same time simultaneously. So you find a situation where the property today, when you put an offering on it or you put it on the contract, maybe not at the 1% rule, but depending on how long it takes for you to do your renovation, within a 6 months or 12-month period, you may be able to get to the 1% rule and put you in a better position to be able to have as close to that 1% rule or higher. But also too, what shouldn't be understated is that the ability to be able to have that appreciation as well, because that appreciation affords you the opportunity to do some other stuff down the road, and it affords you the opportunity as an investor. I always stress this a lot, is that you want to have multiple exit strategies, because sometimes life events happen that cause you to have to pivot and do something different with the property. So say, for example, but also too, an investor budget, your budget is your budget. Your budget is going to determine what area that you're going to be able to purchase in, whether you're going to be able to purchase a, C to D type property or A to B type property, or, any variations of the typically the four different areas. But I think being able to try to get as close to the B price point, the B types properties, push you in a far better position, because you're able to sell the property to an investor and they're able to see the upside in it, and you're able to sell it to a retail buyer, and you're able to hold on to it and leverage it for appreciation down the road. So I think those are critical steps that you must take into consideration. Now, everybody can't afford the B plus properties. That's just the way that it is. But if you can't afford it, if you cannot afford a B plus property, what I would say typically I would say team up with somebody that collectively you all can purchase their property, number one. Number two, I would say if you have to go, C type properties are good too, but once you get under the C minus, the D type properties, those tend to have a higher degree of 1% rule is, so in some cases you're able to get 10% return on those type properties, but the risk associated with it is kind of like investing in the penny stock, right? You got blue chip stocks, you got Microsoft, Apple, Google, those stocks going to perform no matter what over time consistently. The market here is all crazy, but by and large, hold on to those type stocks, you're going to do okay. Now, those are the B type properties, B and A type properties. Now you have the C minus D type properties, which is like these fly by night crypto. We'll just look at some of the new crypto. We want to talk about crypto in particular. We want to talk about Ethereum and Bitcoin. Those are the top tier crypto, right? But you got some other crypto, Dodge, a lot of different ones that's popping up on the market every day. Those are a little bit more volatile than the other ones. So I would look at it and say, well, listen, I got this money to invest. Do I want to try to team up with somebody and get a Google stock, or do I want to go by myself and get me a crypto stock that just hit the market yesterday? But I need this to perform. I would say I would probably hold on to that capital, try to generate some more, again, do a syndication deal with 2 to 3 different partners to be able to purchase something that gets you as close to that blue chip property as possible. Because again, the top 3 things that you want to be able to consider is that you want to have as many exit strategies as possible, in addition to the property itself producing the income that you want.
Okay, let's deep dive to this A, B, C, and D types of neighborhoods. Can you please show us on the map where we can find an A class or B class, or actually all of the different classes, and if you can talk about what is the price range in each neighborhood, and what is the right strategy for each neighborhood? This would be great.
Great too. So can you still see my screen, this map? Can you see this map? Yeah. Okay, great. So
no, we don't see the map.
Oh, you don't see the map?
On your presentation.
Let me see. Let me do a new share. Let me see how this works. Okay, here we go right here. Okay, so you can see this map, right?
Not yet. Oh, yeah, now we do.
Okay, great. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna take some key areas. So what we want to do is start with A+ properties. I'm gonna show it to you kind of on a map in terms of kind of where things are. So you're gonna have at the top of the food chain, you're gonna have Germantown right here. Germantown is this light blue area right here. Okay, so you're gonna have Let me back out a little bit. So let's see a bit further. So you got Germantown and you got Collierville here. Okay, so Germantown and Collierville are the top tier, like A+ areas in the metropolitan. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about the inner city as well, because there's some A+ areas inside the city of Memphis as well, but it's a different type of slightly different type of a product. Okay, so you got Germantown here, and you got Collierville there. Those are the top tier A+ areas, hands down. Consistently, since I've been in the industry, and I don't foresee that change in no time no time in the foreseeable future. They have the ideally the lower crime rates. They have better school performances, and the neighborhood infrastructure, the city infrastructures of those areas are top tier. Okay, now the price ranges of those areas, we'll talk about the prices of those areas in a second, because it's a different sheet. I don't want to kind of bounce back and forth between the two, just kind of go through this in progression. So you got Germantown, Collierville is the top 2 areas. You also have in that as well, you have Arlington here in the yellow. You have Arlington, Lakeland, and also the area of Bartlett. I think this Bartlett here. Bartlett is this area here. So Bartlett has two to three different zip codes. So you have 38135, you have some parts of 3813133, and you have some parts of 38134 for Bartlett. Now, a sweet spot for the Bartlett area is in some areas close to Bartlett that's unincorporated. It's called unincorporated Shelby County. It's not quite Bartlett per se, but it's close enough to Bartlett where you're able to get the benefits of Bartlett. The children in some cases are able to go to the schools, but you're able to have that proximity effect, so to speak. Okay. So one of the next areas would be Cordova. Cordova has 2 zip codes as well, 38018 and 38016. Let me find the other one. Yep, here we go, here. So 38016. So Cordova is solid as well. So Cordova, out of all of those areas, Cordova is probably like a B plus type area. In some areas it's A plus, but it's like typically like a B plus type area. And you also able to get out of all of those areas I mentioned thus far, Cordova in unincorporated outside of Bartlett is going to be the least expensive areas to purchase into as an investor, or even as an owner occupant, really, but as an investor for sure.
So in all of these areas, I guess the prices are what really high. So, how much is it?
Not really. So what we do, I tell you what. Let me just scroll back. Let me go back over here and take a look at this this statistical report. Hold on a second. Let me go here for a second. Let me share this with you real quick. Let's see. Let's see. Here we go. Let me share this screen with you right here. So, yeah, I think you can see it. Okay, you can see the screen here with this spreadsheet on it.
Yep.
Okay, so we're gonna go back to the areas that we started with. So we started with Germantown and Collierville. So if you look right here, and of course this data, I'll be able to email the actual PDF so you can have the breakdown. I just pulled this data today. It's trailing data, of course. So it's from like April and May through January, and of course it compares year over year. So Germantown is right here. Okay. Yep. So Germantown is right here. So far this year, they had 213 sales with the average sale price being 500,000 and the medium sales price being 430. You see it right there? And that's compared to year over year. So those prices in Germantown are up 13.3% to date. Well, trailing data from last month to be specific, okay? And then we have Bartlett right above Germantown. Bartlett average sale price right now is 303,000. It's up 20% compared to 2021. Okay, now we have Cordova.
Even more than in Israel.
Yeah, so now you have Cordova. So Cordova is right above Bartlett. Cordova is at 385,000 right now. It's up 23% year over year. So those are some of the top tier. But right here, when I send this spreadsheet, all you have to do is just look at what areas are selling the houses at the highest price, and you'll be able to deduce from that essentially what are the top tier areas just based on sales price. Now, some of the sweet spots. Let me go back over here to the map, and then I'll pivot back over here for a second on the go to the map. So those are the top tier areas. Now, if we're looking for something like, well, Terrence, listen, I got $200,000 all in cost. Like, what do I do with this $200,000? I would say probably you want to put some fillers out in Cordova. It's going to be challenging to be able to pick something up, but there are some deals every so often. I think one of the top tier areas that I really like a lot, and has always performed over time, and let me see if I can find it, is this area here, the 38125. Now the 38125 is considered like Southeast Memphis. The 38125 zip code is one where you have prices on par kind of with Cordova, but in some cases the prices are a little bit less and the rents are slightly higher as well. So that's an area that's always been consistently solid based on my experience as being an investor and just overseeing renovations and working with clients outside of the states or inside of the inside of the United States as well. And so the 38141 is close. 38141 is another area which probably is going to be, now we're talking about 38141 is like a C plus type area, maybe a B minus, but typically like a C plus area. But you're able to get a solid rental. You're able to get solid rents over there. Tenant productivity is on point in terms of their ability to stay and maintain the property and understand how to be a good tenant, which is a total different conversation to kind of have, because you can have the best property in the A plus area and you're dealing with a tenant that's fresh out of an apartment situation and they tend to have so many more maintenance calls as opposed to a tenant that understands renting a home versus renting an apartment. But that's a different conversation. But the 38141 is a decent area as well. But so going back to the A+ area. So the A+ areas we talked about: Germantown, Collierville, and ideally Bartlett, Lakeland, and Arlington. So all these areas around here, around this periphery around here, are typically the more solid areas. But if you see right here in the Raleigh area, where this red line is right above, because it connects to Lakeland, it connects to Bartlett in 2 different zip codes. This area where this red line is really a good sweet spot as well. The unincorporated area, kind of like the 381, kind of like the 38125. No, it's not. The 38128 is Raleigh, but also the 38133 is a part of that as well as some parts of the 38141. So in that area now, you can get something. Probably you can get something in those areas under the 200, but still get a premium rent for that area as well. So for example, the management company that I work with, we manage properties in that specific area. And in some cases, I think the buyer who acquired the properties, they may be all in at about 150, 160,000. And the rents over there tend to be roughly about anywhere from 12 to about 1,400. Even though it's not quite at the 1% rule, you get stability, you get the ability, you have the upside appreciation. And so I think that and the closer you can get to in acquisition, the closer you can get to a top tier area, the better, even if you forego the 1% rule. Because you want to be as close to possible, you want to be as close as possible. It's kind of like buying the worst house on the best street, right? You want to buy the worst house on the best street because you have so much upside potential. But in this case, in terms of area specifics, you want to try to get as close to the solid areas as possible, and you're able to take a little shave in terms of your cap rate, but you're able to get the upside stability, because neighborhood integrity is critical. What I mean by neighborhood integrity is saying that, listen, you want to have, if you do got renters in the area, you typically want to have homeowners outpacing the renters about 2 to 1. So you want to have probably like no more than about 25 to 30% of renters in the area versus owner occupants, because owner occupants tend to typically take care of the homes better than a tenant.
And what is so you say that Bartlett is an A neighborhood. What would be Raleigh? Not the eastern part, but Raleigh in general.
No, Raleigh in general is solid. I own investment property in Raleigh. So Raleigh, I would say Raleigh is probably typically like a C+ area that's trending, because Raleigh is the area kind of close to where Nike just built a distribution center out there near Raleigh Fraser area, and Amazon just built a distribution center out there as well. So the area is trending upward as opposed to going down. So I would say Raleigh in general is about a C+. In some cases, depending on the area, maybe like a slight B-, but I would say overall, I would say like a C+ type area.
Okay, so if you buy in Raleigh, you probably want to stick to the right, stick to the east, because then you get the sense of Bartlett, but the prices of Raleigh.
That's true. Let me go back over here to this. Let me go back over here to the sheet so I can show you kind of how things are looking in terms of.
Yeah, and if you're going to the sheet again, there's a question from the crowd, from Avital, who's asking what are the prices there?
Okay.
What does it refer to? What type of homes?
Yeah.
Or is it just a general average?
They average like typically like here, like in Memphis, we don't have a lot of basements, so it's very rare to find a home with a basement, but they typically like 3.2s, 3.1s with a carport, in some cases a garage, but a lot of properties in Raleigh tend just to have like a parking pad. So it's not as many garages as you would see, say for example, like in Cordova. So look at it like this. If you go to a newer area or area that's, built after 1980, you're going to find more of those homes that have garages, because as you begin to go into the 90s and the early 2000s, the garage aspect of it was really, really important for people, for a lot of developers and builders. And so let's go over here to the Raleigh area. So let me go over here to Raleigh.
And for that to get properties that are rather new, you need to get as far as you can from the inner ring of Memphis, right?
Not necessarily. We're going to talk about that in a minute. So we have to look at this in two different tracks, because oftentimes people say, well, you buy inside, you don't want to buy inside of the loop, right? The loop is like the inner city of Memphis, but that's not always the case. And we'll talk about that in a second. Let me find Raleigh. Okay, here's Raleigh right here. So Raleigh, Covington, Pike area. So the average sale price is 141,000. Now those prices are up 27% year over year. And so a lot of people, so what's happening with the investment dollar is like, listen, I got $200,000 to spend. I can't spend it in Germantown. I can't spend it in Bartlett. I can't spend it in Collierville. I can't spend it in Lakeland. What do I look? What do I take this $200,000 to be able to get me the closest to the numbers that I want in terms of my spreadsheet? So then you have to start looking at areas. You have to explore areas like the 38141 in Southeast Memphis. You got to take a look at Raleigh because these areas still have producing properties, but it's a matter of being able to position yourself and saying, listen, how can I get the highest and best use of this capital in this marketplace? If I'm going to invest, where should I spend this money? What should my focal point be? Yeah, here are the top tier areas that I would love to have if something comes up, but it's unlikely that something's going to come up. So what are the second tier areas that I'm looking to take a look at? And so Raleigh is one. So here we go right here with Raleigh. So if we look right here, this area right here is Raleigh. So they, it's 347 homes have sold. That's up 11%. So it's showing where this area here has an increase in terms of amount of properties that are being sold, which means there's more people selling homes, but it also means that more people are looking into this area to buy homes. And so if you bought a home last year in Raleigh, roughly your appreciation is up on average about 27% in 12 months. Based on this data that we're looking at right now. So, most all of these are existing home sales. I mean, I think it look right here, it's like 3 new homes and one bank foreclosure. Let's talk about foreclosures for a second, because I know it's a great buzzword for me to create a lead, right? For me to generate some leads, all I got to do is say foreclosure. Everybody wants a foreclosure. Everybody wants a deal. It's just human nature. Now, foreclosures are down substantially, as you can see. It was 3 foreclosures last year. Is 1 foreclosure so far this year. So the foreclosure route is not something it's not a current business strategy on a broad scale. And again, I don't speak in absolutes. I'm just saying based on the data, it's not worth pursuing. But also too, that doesn't mean you should exclude it, but it can't be your primary focal point, I would say, as an investor.
But it's coming. It's coming.
Yeah, sure. Because of the moratorium, so you're gonna have the foreclosures as well. But I guess my bigger point I wanted to make is that if you waiting on foreclosures, I say just hold on to your money and something will come up. Because what happens is that if a person defaults on their loan today, this is before coronavirus and the pandemic and the government relief and the moratoriums and all of that stuff. In a regular market, if you foreclose on a home, if I would default on my home today, and before, back in, we'll just say 2019, I defaulted on my mortgage. It goes to the bank. The bank said, listen, we're going to foreclose. I say, listen, I don't have the money. How about let's do a forbearance? Let's set up some kind of payment. They say, okay, we'll give you a shot. I do that for 3 months. I've stopped making the payments again. Like, I just can't catch up. I don't know what to do. They're like, listen, okay, well, now you can do a potential short sale. They're like, well, I really want to keep my home. So I go talk to one of these attorneys, and the attorney said, well, listen, we can do a bankruptcy, put your home in a bankruptcy and kind of save it for you. And so this process can go back and forth. They try to do the bankruptcy. The bankruptcy court says, listen, this is the amount of money that you got to pay per month, make your payments. The person does this for like 3 to 4 months, and now they back in front of the judge again, saying, "Listen, I can't make this happen." All the while, we're a year in on this quote unquote possible foreclosure. So Zillow has it on their website because it has the public record of the default. But what they don't have is what's going on in the background. And what's going on in the background can be an array of different items. So it's extremely difficult to track a specific property and how it's going to go from a quote unquote pre-foreclosure. That's the word, pre-foreclosure. But what does that really mean? From pre-foreclosure to actual foreclosure, that process can take a length of time, is my point.
Okay, but this is not happening now. Maybe in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go back to the neighborhoods and show us a few more. Okay. So we covered A class, right? Let's cover B class.
Yeah. So B class at the top of the tier has to be Cordova. Cordova is going to be, like I said, these 2 areas right here. 38106 and 38108 is going to be ideally the top, one of the top B class areas on the peripheral in terms of suburbs. Now, also too, you do have on the 38125. The 38125 can be like the 38125 can be like a B plus area as well as Cordova too, from B to A minus, typically from a B to A minus. But there's some neighborhoods in both of these zip codes that have $1 million homes. So you still have, even in these zip codes, you still have subsets of different types of neighborhoods within certain zip codes. Also, I would say another B type area most likely would be, I would say Bartlett is a B type area, and I think another B type area probably would be, I would say if you were to go down in the inner city, would be like Midtown. Like Midtown can range anywhere from a B plus area to a A plus area. Just kind of depends on which street you own, what neighborhood you own, and what zip code that you're in too. So that's a whole nother different, I mean, that's almost a presentation by itself for that type of product. And I own property in Midtown as well. Yeah.
Midtown is what? The light blue part there?
Midtown would be, so Midtown would be here. Some parts of Midtown would be this area here, typically, or ideally, Central Garden. So Central Garden would be the ideal area, but also too, the Memphis Zoo is in Midtown. So it's the blue area, but it's also some areas of this orange, some areas of this red, and some areas of this purple as well. So it's not necessarily defined exclusively by geographics. It's more so proximity to other areas, but essentially I would say this blue area here in the peripheral, and I guess the circumference as close as you can get from the other areas that touches it, if that makes sense.
What are the zip codes there?
The Midtown zip codes, they vary. Hold on, let's go right here. So over here to my left, you got 38110, so you got 38103, you have 38104, and you got 38105, which is the Pinch District. And again, some of these zip codes doesn't fully encompass the whole Midtown. So for example, you got 38107 is North Memphis, but some parts of 38107 is Midtown. You know, in North Memphis, based on the socioeconomics of North Memphis, it probably would be classified as like a C minus area. You know, in general, if you looked at the total zip code. Another thing too, on the zip code front, I think every investor should also be mindful that in Memphis in particular, it's probably like that in other cities too, but I specialize in Memphis, is that you also want to look at the zip codes, but you also want to make sure, you also want to look at stuff on a street by street basis, because in some cases everything would be extremely great over here, and you go 2 streets south, 2 streets north, 2 streets east, 2 streets west, and it's totally different. You go from a B plus neighborhood down to a D minus neighborhood, you know, and so it's something to keep in mind too. So as you assessing properties and you're looking at comps, because the comps doesn't clarify. The comps like, listen, oh dang, I can sell this 2 streets over. I know I should be able to flip this one for, I think we was dealing with this guy probably like a few weeks ago. It's like, we got this property, it's close to something that we like. The comps are saying this, but what happens is that the comps may not necessarily be a true reflection of what's going on that specific street. And then we have to dive deeper into the numbers.
And except for asking you whether this is a B class or a D class, how would the guys here can spot a better place?
A quick evaluation, right? So what I would say, if I didn't have access to me, I probably would take a look at, of course, you want to take a look at the comps. You start with Zillow because it's free. You don't have to talk to a real estate agent. You don't have to talk to anybody. I would start with Zillow and say, okay, and try to see exactly what type of sale it was. What I would say is go to Shelby County Tax Assessor's website. And the tax assessor's website is going to show you the type of transaction that it was. So you put the address in because you want to look at the actual, what happens in the transaction. And what the most critical part is that, did this home sell to a retail buyer to live in it, or did it sell to an investor? If it's sold to an investor, that value doesn't look the same to an appraiser. The appraiser doesn't value investment sales on single family homes in particular. We're not talking about commercial properties, you know, like 10 plus units. We're not talking about that, but just on the single family acquisition front, appraisers do not assess investor to investor sale or investor flip to another investor the same. It doesn't hold the same weight as it does to a retail buyer. And one of the primary reasons is because it's not necessarily an arm's length sale, is that they can't necessarily track what happened within the transaction. They know if it's sold to a retail buyer, that typically that retail buyer got a loan, that retail buyer also got an independent appraisal. And that appraisal value came in on target based on the sales price. Does it make sense? So I would say you start with those two items first, because if you don't, if you just look at the comps and say, well, listen, well, I can get this for 100. It maybe cost me about 40,000 to put in it, but two streets over just sold for 250,000. I think it's worth me trying to flip this particular property. But what you didn't know about the two streets over was that they went in, renovated the property, and they subsidized some of the rent. And based on the subsidizing of the rent, the person on the end buyer, the out-of-state investor, is getting the rent. But once that subsidizing of the rent goes away, then that particular property won't be able to rent for that same amount. So now it was at, you know, maybe 2% rule. Now it's down to 0.5% because the area just can't sustain what the investor did on the front end, and you don't really know that when you have those type of transactions. So those are the two things that I would start with. I'll take a look at the comps, but also too, I'll reach out to a real estate agent, not necessarily me per se, but speaking about real estate agents, it's about 4,000 real estate agents that's licensed in Shelby County, only about 2,000 that are active. Now, every investor can send you every agent can send you some comps, but not every agent is investor oriented. They don't necessarily know about the nuances of, just for example, the example that I just gave about the comps. So you can look at a comp as a comp, but it's not really, it's just how you break it down. And so I think having the right guidance, and whether it's me, it's some other real estate agents in Memphis that has knowledge about real estate investing. So I'm not necessarily the only one. I'm one of the top ones for sure. But my point is that you want to make sure that you still get some comps as well. So you take a look at the Zillow data. You take a look at the Shelby County Tax Assessor's website to see what kind of transaction it was, and you still reach out to a real estate agent just to get some comps on that particular property and get their opinion about it. Because a lot of times too, they may be able to have some insight that I may not necessarily know about. It's rare, but it can happen. I'm not the end all be all.
Yeah, actually, what you say is exactly what Galita and I saw quite recently in East Memphis. We took a look at the property, tried to figure out, it was rather cheap, and we wanted to figure out what the rent is. Taking a look at actually in Google Maps, we saw that the street looks awful, and 2 streets over, there were this more or less same properties that looked much nicer, cost a bit more, like, I don't know, 20% more, but the rent there was tremendously more, like, I don't know, 50% more rent. And this is just because the street looks like a nice suburb as opposed to a slum that is a street that is 2 streets over. And this is exactly what you say. And
yeah, that's true. Yeah, and I think being able to, I think if you all can ever, you know, take a physical trip here, even if you don't buy nothing, when you come, being able to get an idea of the different areas is extremely critical too. It's really just trying to because once you're able to see it on the ground, those areas are not going to change tremendously, you know, change too much between now and the time that you may buy something. But I think if you be able to be able to take a trip here, of course, there's great things to do in terms of just leisure, but on the business front, I think it's worth being able to come to kind of take a look on the ground. But if you can't come, and of course, a lot of different situations doesn't afford us to be able to travel the way that we want to, I would say you want to be able to take a top tier area and say, listen, is it similar to this type area, or is it close to this type area? And so being able to have a contrast allows for you to have a deeper understanding of the subject property that you're interested in.
Good. So let's go on with the neighborhoods. Show us the C class neighborhoods now.
So also too, another B minus area is what I like also too is it's kind of like Whitehaven. Whitehaven was where Elvis Presley Graceland is. So so it's in that area. So that area tends to have a decent amount of rental retention, neighborhood integrity in some neighborhoods over there, as well as being able to have the ability to appreciate also. So it's like the 38116 zip code primarily. Yeah, and so let me see where it is on the map. Yep, here we go, right here. Yep. So Whitehaven will be in this area right here, and you have, yep, so that's Graceland right here. So this Graceland right here. So like these neighborhoods by Graceland is a mansion. So these areas right around Graceland, those homes are older homes and larger homes as well. So if you're able to get anywhere closer to, not anywhere, but in certain areas close to Graceland, you'll be good. You don't necessarily want to be anywhere, but if you're able to get in that immediate proximity of Graceland itself, those tend to be ideal areas as well. So I think Graceland does have some upside potential also too. So I think on the C level, B to C level, I would say 3814, 3816, 3815 is good too, and as well as 3811, because some parts of 38111 is closer to the university, kind of close to the University of Memphis over here. Yeah. So here's the University of Memphis right here. So there's a lot of neighborhoods in this 3811 area that's a solid and ideal, but also you got to, this zip code is a street by street area also. So you got to be really careful and critical in terms of how you assess it. Like, oh, it's close to the University of Memphis, but that's all relative, like close meaning what? Like a half a mile, a quarter of a mile, right down the street, 3 blocks over, 10 blocks over. Because if you look at this zip code, University of Memphis is kind of above halfway, just up the upper third of the actual map. And if you're down here in the same zip code, then not so much. So I would say if you're here, you can potentially easily be as close to in some cases, the B type area, but the further you go, typically the further you go south, it'll start trending down into the C minus type areas down in this particular location here.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and also the you want to add something? Yeah. So also the 38117. So these zip codes right here, these 3 zip codes. This is Cooper Young. Actually, Cooper Young is kind of like south of Midtown. So Cooper Young is a good area. So these areas here. So you got the 38104. You have the 38111, which is near the University of Memphis. And the 38117 is a really good area. Now the 38117 area has some A plus neighborhoods in it. It has A plus neighborhoods, it has B plus neighborhoods, it has you get down too low, you may get down to like the C minus neighborhoods in this same zip code, like in this exact same zip code, because this is considered East Memphis. So we've talked about Southeast Memphis, which is 38125 and the 38141, but this is considered technically the East Memphis area. And so it's adjacent to another East Memphis area, 38120. Now this is the A plus area right here, 38120. It's the A plus area with the average homes over there probably selling in excess of like $300,000+ and up for that particular area. So I think anywhere you can get, like I say, anywhere you can get in this trek right here is ideal. I'm not really too keen on this area right here, the 38114, but I think these areas here are ideal as well if you're able to get into those areas. And even like I said, the 38119 is East Memphis too. It's a B plus type area as well. B plus trending towards the C, between B and C type area also. Because the zip codes expand geographically so far, it's very few zip codes outside of the top tier ones that we mentioned in the A and B area that's not going to offer up some potential risk and some potential reward in that same zip code. So you may have in one zip code, you may range anywhere from, you know, A- all the way down to a D+, just depending on, you know, where you purchase it in that particular zip code.
Okay, if you were us and you wanted to buy a rental property, let's say of up to 100,000, where would that be? Where would you recommend?
Yeah, I would for 100,000 based on the going rate in comps. I would say if I had $100,000 and I had a few areas to choose from, I think my primary area for 100,000 would be. I would try to get in the 3.8. I would try to get in the 3.8125 or 3.8141 because price point wise, I think it's easier to get in those areas with $100,000 than a lot of other areas. I would think that would be like top. Then I would go to Raleigh. Raleigh would be like my second choice in terms of $100,000, and probably.
Terrence, can you point with the with your mouse for people who don't know?
I'm seeing the thing. So yeah, let me just go back. Let's go back. So 3.8125 is down here. Okay, so I would try to get there, but the prices for 3.8125, 100,000 is typically not going to cut it. But I would try to look at the 3.8141, which is right next to it, and try to get there. Now, the 3.8125 is still a good C+ type area too. So I would take a look at that. But I would say my top area, if I had to choose, I would say 3.8125, and I probably would try to go to Raleigh for that same $100,000. I would prefer to be in Midtown, but you know, it's just not going to work out in Midtown, but at that price point. But I would say 3.8125, and it's not really going to work out there, but I would try to get as close to there as possible, whether I'm in the 3.8119, as you can see right here, that's adjacent to, this above the 3.8125, and I would try to get in maybe the 3.8115 within this area right here. If you're looking at the map, so I would try to get in these three areas here, try to get as close to this, and if I can't get there, I would go here, I would go up to Raleigh, and from Raleigh, I probably would go to Whitehaven. Yeah, I would go to Whitehaven after Raleigh.
Okay, if we had 150, would that change the picture? Or maybe 200? You know, people here, I guess, have different funds.
Yeah, it's like the 200. 200, I probably would try to start out in, like 200, I would probably try to start out in Cordova with a fixer upper that I had to do minimum work in, if I could. I would try to get into Cordova. If I can't get into Cordova, now there are some unincorporated areas in the 3.13133 area. So I'll try to get up in this. I'll try to get in this area up here. If I had 200,000, then I would go back again. I would go back to the same deal down here. You may be able to get something better in these areas here. Now I wouldn't overpay down here. I wouldn't pay 200,000 just in general in the 3.8119, the 3.8135, or in the 3.8141. But if I got 200,000, I got more room for renovation. I got more renovation money tied into it too. So I was like, listen, if I can get something for maybe 110, 120, 125 in the 3.8, just say for example, the 3.8119, and I'm able to, you know, put about another 20,000 in it. If I'm flipping it, I'll probably get close to about 180. So try to make me about anywhere between 15 to 30,000 in net profit and then move on to the next property. So ideally, that's what you want. The biggest challenge that we have, of course, as I laid out in the beginning, is that the inventory is so low. So when it does come to the market, then it's typically going to be overpriced. I mean, every property that I've listed on the open market in the last 2 years, we listed above where the seller wanted, where we thought the market was going, and 85% of those properties are appraised for the value.
So if people here want to fix and flip, they should focus on the area of Bartlett and Cordova, you say, even though the inventory is very low.
Yeah, I think fix and flip can work anywhere. It just depends on. So, for example, if you got $100,000, you want to do a fix and flip, right? And say, okay, we'll go to an area that we haven't even mentioned yet. We'll just say Fraser. Fraser is like a C+ area at best on average. Okay, so we go to Fraser. So I say, listen, I got $100,000. I don't know. I don't even know if 100,000 really is going to work, because you still need the flip need to be worth your while, right? You need to be able to make some money on the flip as opposed to just going through the motion saying, oh, I flipped the house. How much you make? $5,000. Like, you know, Like it's just not ideal. But for example, we take Fraser, right? So we're able to get something in, so we maybe fix something up in Fraser. Let's look at the sales price for Fraser. Hold on a second. Let me go over here.
Very, very cheap.
Yeah. So we take Fraser,
we know.
right? Yeah, I know. Can you see this? Can you see the spreadsheet?
Yeah, we see it.
Okay, so let me move. Okay, so over here, the average sale price right now in Fraser is $73,000, but it's up 15% year over year. So, you know, it is some positive stuff going on out there. So I would say if I'm able to get something in Fraser for, let's say, $50,000. Now, if I find something in Fraser for $50,000, if it's off market, I have better opportunity to a lot of upside. If it's on the market, if it's $50,000 on the market, it's probably really worth $30,000 or $40,000. So, and we know that average sale price is $83,000. So that's our top line number. If $83,000 is top line number, we can get it for $40,000. We can put 20 in it, then minus fees and expenses, we may be able to walk away with about $12,000 to $13,000, which is okay in this market. I mean, you know, it's okay, but also depends on how extensive is the renovation, how long is it going to take, and those things matter as well, because you want to put the money to the highest and best possible use, as you know, to be able to bring back what it is you're looking to get out of the deal. Yeah.
Okay. Guys, if you have questions, because I think we covered a lot of neighborhoods here.
Just a second, we need to talk about zip codes. We don't want to go there.
Listen, that's a good question. Listen, as a licensed real estate professional, I can't specifically say, listen, don't do this. But what I can say is that the stuff that I've told you about already is that those are the areas that I would primarily focus on. Now, it's some areas. Let's just go through some zip codes. Let's just go through some stuff. Okay?
We will help you. North Memphis.
Okay, so we'll start down here. So Oakland is good. Like I said, Oakland is a suburb. So let's just back up. So we got a lot of suburban areas, right? And some of the suburban rural areas, not necessarily completely rural, but slightly rural areas, they do offer opportunities as well. But in those areas, you do have some underperforming neighborhoods as an investment properties too. So for areas that I say that the areas that I have not advised clients in, let's do that, okay? Let's do that. So these are some areas that I have not advised any clients to go to. You know, and of course it's not my, whatever, if a client want to buy in an area, that's the area that, you know, we're going to try to find something in. But in terms of, they come to me and say, listen, this is what I want to do. Here's my risk tolerance. I think let's do risk tolerance, okay? That's where we'll frame it. We'll say risk tolerance, right? So if you got a high degree of interest in pain and in risk, then it's some areas that you want to consider. If you are more conservative and want to be able to make sure or try to ensure as much as possible that your money come back to you, then these are areas that you do not want to invest in, ideally. Okay, so let's go here. We'll say, now, the 38106 area, which is considered South Memphis. Now, there's some areas of South Memphis that some of my investment partners have performed in extremely well. I got clients in California that have done well in this zip code in pieces. But by and large, it's not necessarily an immediate area where the vast majority of my clients that I've dealt with, including myself, purchasing. Now, I would purchase in South Memphis if the price is right, based on the asset. So it's something that I would potentially consider, but on average, it's an area that I'm not necessarily at the top of the list. You mentioned North Memphis. Now, North Memphis does have some upside potential, specifically when you're talking about the Snowden area, these areas over here that borders uptown and midtown, right here on the bottom of the, right here in these areas here. So I think it does have some potential, but it's not an area that I tend to focus on. Now, the 38108 is also a part of North Memphis. I haven't worked with a client that has purchased in this area over a decade of doing this in hundreds and hundreds of transactions. But that's not to say, but it's people, but I think people need to live everywhere, and which means that people are investing everywhere. It all boils down to what your risk tolerance level is and what are you looking to do long term, because the lower you go on the social economic playing field, you have more disruption in terms of the neighborhood integrity. And so at the top of this presentation, I highlighted some key things is that being able to have multiple exit strategies, number one, being able to have neighborhood integrity in terms of the neighborhood that you're buying. And that neighborhood integrity means that if I purchase this today, I can go to sleep for 2 years and typically the neighborhood is not going to change much in terms of going down. But if I buy this property today and I go to sleep and I wake up and I can't recognize where my house is located at, then that's a problem. And most of the clients that I deal with are typically buying whole clients. I do deal with clients that flip properties too, but it's just so much, it's just so challenging to flip right now. So a lot of my clients are buying property. Like right now, I got a property that I'm selling right now off market to a client in a certain area. And this particular client wants to buy this property and their strategy is to hold on to it at least 24 months under the 1% rule in order to be able to get the appreciation because of the area. And the area is close. The area is actually in Cooper Young. It's down here in this area right here. And so my point is that, yes, you want to try to stick to the script. You want to try to stick to the 1% rule as close as possible, as frequently as possible. But the challenge in the ever-changing market is that sometimes you have to pivot. That's not necessarily that you're willing to accept less. It's saying, well, listen, you open to foregoing those immediate gains for a longer term play. Okay? So we'll go over here. Now, let's go over here. Now, this area here in the 38112, I own a property in this area. It's adjacent to Midtown, but it's also called Binghampton. This area here has some real upside potential. Just a quick teaser, okay? Just a quick teaser for all these investors. This area right here on Tillman, between Tillman and Sam Cooper, this area right here is undergoing early stages of revitalization. And so if in fact, now again, if the mayor of the city is, comes up for a vote and he loses, a new mayor comes in, new mayor may pivot and have their focal point somewhere else. But as of today, June the 6th, June the 9th, 2022, this area here has some real up and coming potential within the next 18 to 24 months, this particular section of the street here. Not all the way down here, just this immediate area right here. Now, this is based on what's going on the ground right now, and it's just a little teaser in terms of some insight that I look into, because I look at trends as well. I look at growing trends as like what's going on the ground in any given area, even though the area itself has been underserved in terms of real estate, in terms of investor interest, in terms of government funding. Now things are beginning to shift. Of course, you see it's a police station that's there, but the police station been there, but it's always good to have properties around a police station too, relatively speaking. Yeah.
Okay, and what is going on in this area? Is it new roads, new?
Yeah, so yes,
getting new there.
Yeah, so what they're doing is that they had in this section, I think it's this section here was some old apartments or some kind of like projects, and so they're tearing them down, and now they're going to build a different community in this area right here. This area here, as you cross over here, is already solid because this Walnut Grove right here. So this is a solid area anyway, just this street here. So once you cross over there, things gets better anyway. But I think this immediate area right here, because it has this development that they're about to do, they've already redid the streets. They already redid the street. They made a bike lane. Anytime you see bike lanes going into effect in terms of streets, then you got to take that into consideration. So they created a bike lane. They're redoing this area right here. Now, there's a lot of stuff that still needs to take place because when things happen early, the neighborhood looks the same. The only difference is that one or two projects on the street is beginning to change. And so, but gradually, incrementally over time, everything begin to change because, of course, taxes goes up, and then some people are priced out of the market, and a lot of things begin to kind of snowball for the negative for some people and a positive upside for other people as well. But this one of the areas that I see where it's some insight, a lot of eventful things are going on right here. And down here at the end of the corner, about 2 to 3 years ago, they created a new shopping center down here, and they just built a performing arts center right here, $1 million performing arts center down here at the end of this street here. So what we're talking about specifically now is this area here. This area down here is already taken care of. right? But on this side of the street, you just still got a lot of stuff where, you know, it looks as if it needs some attention, and it does. But, you know, it just depends on kind of how you want to get into it. And I think value add, from a value add perspective, this isn't a fix and flip neighborhood right now. This is a, you know, you try to fix it, you stuck for a while type neighborhood. But
you need to hold to it.
yeah, but holding on to it is good. I mean, I tried to acquire something over there myself, and me and the seller just couldn't work out the terms, and you know, so it really didn't work out for me just yet. So, but I got my feelers out there too. But I think being able to buy something in this immediate area, not necessarily going too far away from the primary street, of course, is going to yield you some future potential upside. And of course, if the rent is close to something that you're willing to accept on the front end, I think an area like this is worth taking a chance on, because even if you end up basically selling it and breaking even on the acquisition and sale part of it, you still got some rent money out of it in the interim. So it's still worth the risk, because it's all, you know, all investment is risk. It's just, are we doing as much calculated risk as possible? You know, we want to make sure that we're doing a solid risk assessment of the actual asset before we acquire it.
Yeah, very good.
What about the rest of this zip code? 38112?
That particular zip code. Let's go look over here to it. Yeah. The other parts of the zip codes, it's a few things going on in the general area. Let me go look over here. Yeah, there's a few things going on in that area as well. Aside from that, but I think by and large, it hadn't been a zip code. Now I have had a client, a past client of mine. He used to buy in that zip code. He would buy them, fix them up. What he would do, buy them, fix them up, place a tenant, and then resell them with a new tenant in place. And he was able to get a substantial amount of rent, and the rent was official. He was getting the rent. You know, I seen the lease agreements, I seen the rental payment stubs where, you know, the money was coming in. He would just off-sell those to investors. So he's had some success in it. I hadn't had another investor, include myself, really dive into that specific area at the same rate of speed or with the same degree of vigor in terms of looking to make that area something that's ideal on the flip side. But I have had one client that had looked into that area that we just highlighted on Tillman, where it worked out really great for him. At least he did it at least 3 to 4 different times in the last roughly in the last 2.5 years. So he started a little bit before coronavirus, and then we did it a few times early on in coronavirus too. Because if we think back to when the coronavirus happened, a lot of people pulled out of the market. A lot of people like, listen, I'm not doing nothing. I'm just trying to wait and see. And what he did was he's like, forget that. I'm diving in. So he dived in and was able to get properties at a cheaper price. Now these same areas, you can't buy the properties at that same price anymore, because, you know, the numbers are just aren't there. And that's the thing about opportunity. You don't know it's an opportunity until it's realized. And of course, you don't know whether or not it's a bad decision until it's not realized either. So it's just one of those situations where you have to kind of assess it on a case-by-case basis. But he was in a position to take those risks, and he reaped the rewards for them.
Yeah.
And so in terms of other, I really don't know other areas where I haven't really, hold on a second. Let me see. It is another area that I don't really deal with often. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Because I think this is Memphis neighborhood. So these areas, right? So this is considered like North Haven. So this is an area out here right before you get to Millington. Millington is a decent city, but it's not a part of this presentation today. But it still is a average size, a nice size area where you may be able to have anywhere between C-type properties up to maybe like a B- in some neighborhoods out this way. But this area here is considered like North Haven, and it's not necessarily an area where, you know, we even we don't even manage properties in that area. So, you know, but there's a lot of people that do. So, you know, I just think it kind of varies. I think the primary focal point is, oh yeah, here's North Haven right here. Yep. So North Haven is like just north of just this way too, but also too just north of Fraser. So Fraser is here, and North Haven is kind of like north of Fraser. For some reason, I just haven't been able to make it. We haven't been able to make it work on the rental side. Neither have I been able to make it work dealing with on the investment side too, either since I've been in the industry. Yeah. Yeah, but I think even in the areas that I highlighted that I hadn't had clients working in, it's something to keep in mind. If every investor is different, every investor's strategy, risk tolerance, and price point and ideal objectives are different. So I think every property should be assessed on a case-by-case basis. But I think it needs to boil down to the fundamentals. It's like, why are you investing? Like, what causes you to invest? Are you doing it for retirement? Are you doing it for, quick cash? And let that be the driving force. Because if you're looking to do something long-term, you would rather have some stability and less upside in terms of immediate cash flow. Because the stability is going to get you to where you're trying to go. And it's going to afford you the opportunity to have a good peace of mind. Because what is it worth having a 2%, instead of the 1% rule, you end up getting a 2% rule, and you constantly dealing with issues day in and day out. So it disrupts your peace of mind. So what is your peace of mind worth? I think that's what it boils down to in terms of how you want to go about investing. Because if you saying, listen, Terrence, I want a 10%, I want a 10 to 12%, 15% cash on cash return. I'm like, okay, great. So do I. But what are you willing to give up in exchange for that, right? Are you willing to give up the tenants constantly moving out, the house constantly being broken into, the tenants calling you all the time with issues? And so it's disrupting your personal life, and you already got other stuff going on. You're not looking to do real estate full time. Most people aren't. And you're not here on the ground. So you don't want to be bogged down daily. Every time you wake up, of course, with the time difference, every time you wake up, you got a new email about a new issue that has arisen. And what is that cost worth to you? I think that's something to keep in mind too. Like, I think that's something to keep at the top of the list, and you can't quantify that, right? That doesn't fit on your spreadsheet. It doesn't fit in the assessment of it all. But I'm telling you, I've been doing this for a long period of time. I work with clients all over the world, and having a peace of mind by far, we're adults, right? Just as an adult, just having a peaceful evening is worth anything that you're able to pay for, almost, right? So I think the same thing with investing is that you want to understand your risk tolerance, is that don't get greedy. Don't get greedy.
Yeah.
Very good advice. Okay, I think it's time for questions from the crowd. Actually,
we can unmute, Guy.
Unmute everyone. Yeah. And guys, if you want, you can unmute yourself now and ask questions. If you want to write, and we will ask, this is also fine.
It seems that you covered it all. All right.
Okay.
Oh,
How are you guys?
I was ready. I'm ready for the questions.
Well, you covered so much.
Yeah. I hope that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Okay. Thank you very much, Terrence. And would you be able to share with us maybe your spreadsheet and this map?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I'll be able to. Yeah. So what I'll do is that I'll be able to email you all out basically the link to this map right here, so you're able to have this map as well. The link to the map. I'll be able to send you out the actual spreadsheet data as it relates to this information. We didn't even get a chance to really go over this. This breaks properties down by bedrooms and price points, so you're able to see exactly how many transactions has taken place year to date. I send this out to you as well, because the more informed you are as an investor, the better position that you're going to be in. Yeah.
Maybe we have some suggestions about property management companies?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so I partly own a property management company too, but there's a lot of good companies out there too. So it's two primarily ones that I kind of use as well, and I send that over in the email that I refer out to some of my other clients as well. Because again, my company only takes on a small amount of we only manage a small amount of properties by design. We don't manage we don't manage as many as some of the larger firms, primarily because we want to give a certain type of service. And the more properties that you get, you can't get that same service when you got 2,000-3,000 properties. Yeah, but I'll be able to send over a referral of some property management companies that I've seen produce over time. And I think every company at some point may have an issue or two with an owner and with a tenant. But I think by and large, over the course of my career, the companies that I'm going to refer, the companies I'm going to highlight, those companies have been pretty good overall.
So you concentrate more on buying and selling, or also with property management. Your office.
Property management is more like an ancillary business. It's not my primary business. So yes, I focus primarily on the acquisition and the sale of properties. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. It will be nice to get some suggestion about good or reliable property management companies.
Yeah, that's critical. I mean, none of this work if the property management doesn't work, right? You know what I mean? Other than you having an asset, but none of it really works if you don't have adequate property management.
Of course.
And even though I'm not going to send you a long list of companies, it's still some other decent companies out there as well. I would say do your due diligence, just kind of have a conversation with a few of them to kind of see, do they really match well for you? Because, and also too, as you begin to acquire more properties, then that company should show you some appreciation as well. They should show that they want to work with you long term. Where if you start out at, like with some of our clients, is that we started out with one property at one price, and then as they begin to acquire more properties, we begin to reduce the management fee. And also too, in some companies, every company's dynamic is set up different. So I know some companies that charge, say for example, you got a maintenance, the tenant has a maintenance request. Some companies charge an administrative fee just to send somebody out to the property, not including the cost associated with the people going out to the property. That's a fee, and the fee associated with fixing the issue. And I know some companies like ours, we don't charge any fees. The fee you pay is the fee that the technician charges to fix the issue, and that's it. We don't get any fee associated with that particular issue. So it really just kind of varies. But again, my company, we only manage a small amount of properties.
Okay. Thank you.
Like the larger firms, they in the property. We have a property management company that I'm part owner of, and so we have a company, but the company itself is an ancillary business. It's not our primary business, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Terrence, first I would like to thank you for your great presentation.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, and I would like to know, to ask you what you think is going on the market, about if the prices is going up or it will decrease or increase. What you think is going on the market, and what you think about the bank, about the banks.
The banks.
Yes.
I think prices are currently cooling. Like, so I mean, prices are going to continue to go up. So for example, prior to COVID happening, the average year over year prices rose about 7% a year, typically in most areas. On average, just in a normal market, prices are up about 7% year over year. Now we just seen that right now, from 2021 to 2022, prices are up about 17%. So almost triple in appreciation in the same amount of time period. But what I would say is that prices are going to cool. I don't think prices are going to dip too much. I think what's going to happen is that what we're doing now with some of the properties that I'm working with is that, you're going to have some price adjustments, you're going to have some price reductions. But I think by and large, being able to say, well, if prices are up 17% today, I think 24 months from now, I think we'll be back closer to 7 to 8% appreciation as opposed to the 17% that we got right now. Now, at some point, these people that lost their jobs, some people lost their lives, and some family members are going to have to sell some of these properties that they own, and some banks going to take some properties back. So the banks foreclosures are going to have an impact, but I think because of the demand is so high in general, I don't think it's going in the way the foreclosure process works in terms of timing, because it may take 18 months before one foreclosure goes through. And if that's the case, it's not going to have as much of a direct impact as opposed to, I'm not sure if you're familiar with 2007, 2008, when the housing crisis happened, when prices dropped. that's not going to happen again. In my opinion, of course, I don't know that to be a fact, but I do know that in order to qualify to buy a house today, you really have to be qualified. The problem in 2006, 2007, before that, was that if you could breathe, you can get a loan to buy a house back then. But now you have to be really qualified to buy a house. So I think based on the fundamentals of it all, saying, listen, if I'm going to buy a house, and I'm in the market for a house myself, you know, another house to purchase, to live in. And so in order to qualify, you really got to be qualified. So they're just not giving out money these days in that respect. So I think from the bank's perspective, I think the banks are more critical in terms of how they take a look at your information and saying, listen, does this person really qualify for $300,000 or should they qualify for $150,000? But I think, in answering your question specifically about prices, I think prices are going to rise, but not as fast as they are right now. I think what's going to happen is that we're going to adjust to essentially where we at right now will probably be like the bottom of kind of where we're going to in the future. 24 months from now, I think the average appreciation will probably go anywhere between 7 to 8%, maybe down anywhere between, I would say 5 to 8%, somewhere in that range, because I think the neighborhoods are still solid. You're still going to be able to get a deal every so often, you know, great deals every so often, but deals that you can digest, I think those are still, I think more inventory is consistently coming on the market. Right now, we have more open houses. Anytime you have an open house here, is because the house hadn't sold the previous week, right? I hadn't did an open house in over 2 years, and I'm doing my first one this Saturday. So I think the market is going to cool for sure. I think 5 to 7% appreciation is going to take place. I think more inventory is going to come onto the market. And of course, interest rates is rising too still. It's going to be another interest rate hike. So I think because of that, prices will probably take a slight dip. So for example, it may go down from 17 to, you know, down to 10, and then from 10, it'll start tapering down some as the market cools off, because what has to happen is that the supply and demand ratio has to take effect. Irregardless of what the banks do, it has to be more inventory on the market, and also or less buyers in the market, because a lot of first-time buyers are being priced out of the market right now. That's not allowing them to be able to purchase property because they just can't afford the prices. And so prices will come down, then the buyers will come back, and then it'll be a better balance than it is right now. Right now, it's just that it's a lot of buyers in very few houses, and the houses are selling houses are priced so high, and the buyers are making the prices even higher. Because, for example, this year, just say, for example, last month, the transactions that I did, every house that I sold over the price that we wanted for it. So we listed the property, we put the property on the market at a high price anyway. Then we got a price higher than that. And so that set the new price. And so I think over time, that's not going to happen. I think the price you set, this price that you're going to get, right? Because that's what we need in order for the market to be able to settle. We need the prices to come down, but we need less competition. We need less competition for the house. So right now, I think we're getting it in the top market, in the luxury market is happening right now. I think in the lower tier market, the average sale price, right now, the average sale price is about $220,000. I think in the 100 price range, that's going to happen too. But I think it starts here. It starts with the top properties, and then it trickles down to the less expensive properties. And I think within the next 24 to 36 months, we would be at a new normal. What that looks like, I don't know for sure. I wish I could predict it. If I could, I'd play the lottery. I would even be doing this no more.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you very, very much, Terence. It was great, I think. What do you think, guys?
Yeah, of course. This
Great.
is
Thank
great.
you, Terence.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, and of course we'll share with the group your details and the files that you send us.
Yes,
so,
yes. I offer free consultation.
Good to hear.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Guys,
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
next
Terence.
pickup.
Nice.
Thank you. Y'all have a great one. Bye-bye.
Bye, Terence. Bye.